familiar story of how much God is trying to convince us of His love for us. And, well, that wouldn't be a surprise. We're here on a Sunday morning and we hear that God loves us, so that's not a surprise. But maybe beyond God loving us, which sometimes we don't always stop to think about, sometimes we don't have the moment to do, is to realize how large God has created our life to be. How full God wants our life to be. Full. That kind of full where it's almost uncomfortable. But you know how you can have a beautiful and good meal and not only be satisfied, but you're full. This was God's great dream for us as we read about it in the book of Genesis. As God created us, with His own hands He created us. That as God created us, He didn't just want us to have life, we're told in Genesis, but He wanted us to have a full life. That's what we're made for. That's what our hearts are yearning for. That's what we try to seek. Now the gospel today, in some ways, if we look at it askance, because it's not the way it's supposed to be looked at, but if we look at it a little bit askance, we see that possessions can be a temptation to fill up our life. But our life wasn't made for things. We instinctively know that. It's nice to have beautiful and good things. But we're made for one another. We're made to love, and we're made to be loved. Not one or the other. There's not a person who takes a breath. There isn't anyone who draws a breath that God's dream for them wouldn't know in this life, here and now, the gift, the fullness of not only being able to love somebody else, but to be loved freely. Every time we come together to celebrate Mass, we take a piece of bread, mostly on Sundays, this large one, so that we can all see it. We take this piece of bread because we know at the Last Supper, Jesus took the unleavened bread. And it was at that moment that He was saying to His disciples, those closest to Him, how much He believed in them. It was at that moment in the Last Supper that Jesus was trying to help them to understand how big God wanted their life to be and how capable they were to receive a large and filled and blessed and grace-filled life. So when Jesus took that bread, you know the word as well as I do, when Jesus took that bread, and because of His great love of those disciples, because of His great love for us, now when we hear those words, taking the bread, this is my body. And that would have been a phrase, those would have been words that the apostles, the disciples at that moment would have had to scratch their heads and wonder, this is my body? This is the bread we use for Passover. This is my body? In that moment, what Jesus was asking, what Jesus was letting His disciples know, is that not a person who is born, who isn't blessed with the ability and the gift of faith, to look at a piece of bread, and then to dig deep into their souls, and to believe that God's personal love for them is so powerful that God's personal love for you, that God's personal love for me is so powerful that what human eyes will say is bread, what to our touch is bread, we know that God's powerful love, in a way that we'll never understand this side of heaven, that this bread actually becomes Christ's body and blood for us. Look at this bread. This is my body. One of the ways that Jesus was trying to affirm those disciples, one of the ways that Jesus is trying to affirm us every time we come to Mass and hear those words is it's a call to faith. It's a call to action. Look at the bread. Believe how much God loves you in your life right now. God loves your daughter. God loves your son. God loves your wife and your husband and your neighbor and your friends and your coworkers. That God loves you so much that look at this bread, that love that God has for you isn't something that just hovers over you, around you. But that love for you and those that you cherish, those that you bump into, those that bump into you, those who push your buttons, and those people whose buttons you push, that God's love is so powerful. Look at this bread and see that that love has changed it in a way that we need to humble ourselves to say, it doesn't make sense in this moment, but this is what Jesus said, this is now my body. We never have to wonder where Jesus is in our life when we receive Holy Communion. He's as close inside to us as the Holy Eucharist. But you see, it doesn't stop with the bread, because that would have been a beautiful gift in and of itself. Everything that I just said, it takes a lifetime to let that truth of our faith sink in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health. When the day is going great and when the day is a challenge, to be able to know that God loves us so deeply. But here's what I believe is the second reason that Jesus took the Passover bread, and because of his love, changed that bread into his body and blood for us. Because Jesus wanted us to realize he was here in the Holy Eucharist. But Jesus also wanted us to recognize that he's in each and every single one of us. And I believe that it was in the heart of God and the heart of Christ that at that moment at the Last Supper, that he knew if those disciples could look at that bread and believe that God could be turning bread into his body and blood, that God could certainly do that for them. That God could certainly be with the people that they love and cherish. Look at this bread and see my body and blood. Look at yourself in the mirror and see my body and blood. Look at your son or your daughter. Look at your spouse. Look at your grandchildren. Look at people you don't even know walking down the street. See my body and blood. That was Jesus' dream, to have restored the world as a place of brothers and sisters, God, whose image and likeness were all made in, that we would all cherish one another in that way. The gospel today gives us two choices. We can either try to fill our lives with possessions, as good as they may be, or we can try in faith every time we come to Mass and look at bread and wine and know that God's great love for us is so powerful that it changes that bread and wine into his body and blood. And then when we walk out the door, to be able to realize as we look at ourselves, I am Christ's body and blood. As we look at those that our eyes are cast upon, she is Christ's body and blood. He is Christ's body and blood. It might be the Christ who's celebrating life today in great victories. It might be the Christ who's suffering and hurting. There's not a piece of unleavened bread that when the words are said, this is my body given for you, that God doesn't cherish and becomes his body and blood. There's not one life here on earth that God isn't present to. There's no situation, no event, no occurrence in our life that God is not a part of. Let's hear the words anew. This is my body. Let's hear the words anew when we see one another. This is my body. In a beautiful way, a woman from France, Jean Jougan, recognized the body of Christ in the elderly poor. As it was announced at the beginning of the Mass, we have two sisters here today from the Jean Jugan sisters, Sister Ophelia and Sister Mary. Their founder is Sister Jean Jugan, who is living in France, and she noticed this elderly poor woman sick, no one to take care of her. She saw the suffering Christ in her. This is my body. And Jean Jugan took that woman and took her to her own home and cared for her, cared for Christ, the suffering of Christ. And after one, and then another and another, to the beautiful ministry that the sisters do. Somebody once said that if you want to know how something should be done, ask a priest. If you want to get something done, ask a nun.